All right, let's dive into an absolutely epic story. Today we're talking about a 4,000-year journey of survival. We're going to follow the Jewish people all the way from their earliest beginnings as nomadic tribes in the desert, right up to their collision with the mighty Roman Empire. It's a history that has, without a doubt, shaped the world we live in. So, let's get into it.
So that brings us to the big question, right? How does a story like this, spanning 4 millennia, even happen? How does a people's faith and their identity get born and then preserved against, well, just about every odds you can imagine? It's a story of migration, of radical new ideas, and ultimately of an incredible will to survive.
So to get our heads around this, we're going to break it down into 5 key stages. We'll start at the very beginning, with their ancient origins. Then we'll see the birth of a revolutionary faith during the Exodus. After that, the rise and, well, the fall of their great kingdoms. We'll look at the trauma of conquest and exile. And finally, we'll see their struggles to survive under a whole series of world-changing empires. Okay, let's start at the very beginning. Our story kicks off in the ancient Near East, and we're going to explore how a group of nomads first started to see themselves as a unique and distinct people. Now you gotta understand, this story doesn't just pop out of nowhere. The people who would eventually become the Hebrews, sometimes called the Abiru in ancient records, they were part of this much bigger migration of Semitic peoples moving out of the Arabian desert for centuries. They were semi-nomadic, living on the edges of the big civilizations of the day, like Egypt and the cities of Canaan. Okay, this next idea is super important for understanding everything that comes after. It's called henotheism. It's not quite monotheism like we think of it today. Think of it this way. It wasn't, there is only one God, period. It was more like, we have our God, and he's the one we worship, but sure, you guys over there, you have your gods. It was a worldview of, our God for us, your God for you. This is the foundation that everything else is going to be built on. All right, now we get to a moment that changes everything, the Exodus. This isn't just a story about escaping slavery. No, this is the event that completely transforms their entire belief system. So around the 13th century BCE, you've got this incredible story. On the one hand, we know from historical sources that people like the Abiru were used for massive building projects under powerful pharaohs like Ramses II. And on the other hand, you have the result of that oppression, the foundational story of the Exodus, this dramatic, desperate escape from Egypt, led by the legendary figure Moses, all heading toward a promised land.
And this slide right here, this is the theological earthquake. The tradition says that in the desert at a place called Mount Sinai, the whole game changed. They went from henotheism, our God is our number one, to a truly radical new idea, monotheism, the belief that there is only one God for everyone everywhere. That is a massive, world-changing concept, and it's what forges the identity of the people who are now called the Israelites.
So they've got this revolutionary new faith, this powerful new identity. Now what? Well, they enter Canaan, they start to settle down, and things get complicated. This next phase is all about building a glorious kingdom and then, tragically, watching it tear itself apart. For a couple of hundred years, it's basically a bunch of tribes living in this loose confederation, sometimes working together, sometimes not. And then this one guy, David, comes along, and around 1000 BCE, he does the impossible. He unites all these scattered tribes into a single, powerful kingdom, and he establishes his capital in the city of Jerusalem. And under David, and then his son, Solomon, things really take off. This is the golden age you always hear about. It's the era of the legendary First Temple in Jerusalem, a magnificent building, a permanent home for their most sacred object, the Ark of the Covenant. It was a symbol of their power, their stability, and their connection to their God.
But you knew it was coming, right? This golden age just couldn't last. After Solomon dies, all these political tensions just boil over, and the kingdom splits right in two. You get the kingdom of Israel in the north and the kingdom of Judah in the south. And this is a really key moment. The people from that southern kingdom, Judah, well, they start being called Jews. That's where the name comes from.
Now, splitting up right when powerful, hungry empires are starting to rise up all around them, yeah, that's not a great strategy. This division created a fatal weakness, and now these two sister kingdoms had to face these new threats all alone.
And this timeline just lays out the cold, hard facts of what happened next. It was brutal. In 722 BCE, the massive Assyrian Empire rolls in and conquers the northern kingdom of Israel. Then, after Assyria falls, the next superpower on the block, the Babylonian Empire, comes in and conquers the southern kingdom of Judah in 587 BCE. Just like that, the era of Hebrew independence comes to a very violent end. Okay, so you might be thinking, conquered is conquered, right? But no, how they were conquered made all the difference in the world. See, the Assyrians took the people from the northern kingdom of Israel and scattered them all across their empire. And over time, they just blended in, assimilated. They became known as the 10 Lost Tribes. But the Babylonians did something different. They took the elites from Judah, the priests, the scribes, the leaders, and exiled them together as a group to Babylon. And this shared trauma, this horrible event, it paradoxically saved them. Because they were away from their land and their temple, it forced them to focus on writing everything down, their laws, their stories, their traditions. It reinforced their identity instead of destroying it.
So, they survive Babylon, but the story is far from over. Now they've got to figure out how to live in a world run by one mega empire after another, leading to these intense periods of rebellion and struggle for survival.
And man, history starts moving fast here. It's like a revolving door of empires. First, the Persians conquer the Babylonians, and their king, Cyrus the Great, does something amazing. He lets the Jews go back home and rebuild their temple. Then Alexander the Great sweeps through, bringing Greek language and culture with him. And finally, the big one, the ultimate power of the ancient world arrives, Rome.
But they didn't always just take it. Under the Greeks, things got really tense. A Greek king tried to force his religion on them, even desecrating the temple in Jerusalem. This sparked an incredible, full-blown rebellion, the Maccabean Revolt. And against all odds, they actually won, driving out the Greeks and establishing their own independent Jewish kingdom for about 100 years, right before Rome showed up.
And that brings us to Herod the Great. What a character! He's this guy put in charge by the Romans, a client king. On the one hand, he's a master builder. He undertakes this unbelievable, massive renovation of the Second Temple, making it truly spectacular. But at the same time, a lot of the faithful just don't trust him. He's not from the right lineage, and he's way too cozy with the Romans and their culture. His reign was a time of both splendor and deep, simmering conflict.
And this quote just nails the vibe of the era. Jewish society wasn't one single thing. It was this bubbling cauldron of different groups and sects, all arguing about the right way to live, the right way to interpret their laws, the right way to deal with their Roman overlords. And it's into this incredibly charged, divided world that a figure named Jesus of Nazareth is born. So we're going to end it right there on a knife's edge. You've got this ancient tradition, these intense internal debates, and now the full power of the Roman Empire is right on their doorstep. A collision course was set, and the confrontation between this ancient, unyielding faith and the absolute might of Rome would go on to shape the future of not just the Jewish people, but the entire Western world.